The Industries of the Future, by Alec J. Introduction. It's 3 in the morning in Charleston, West Virginia. The year is 1991. A young college student is on his hands and knees, mopping up sticky, whiskey-smelling vomit from a concrete floor. The air is thick with the aftermath of a country music concert. This isn't a glamorous summer internship at a law firm or a bank. This is the midnight janitorial crew. That young man was Alec J. And the men he worked with on that crew were not college kids earning extra cash. They were men in their 40s and 50s, men who should have been at the peak of their earning years. They were tough, good guys, but they were beaten down. Why? Because the world had changed underneath their feet. The coal mining job their fathers had was now done by a machine. The factory job that once offered a stable life had moved to Mexico or India. For them, this midnight janitor shift wasn't a temporary stop, it was one of the only options left. They were on the wrong side of globalization. This single, powerful memory is the key to understanding one of the most important books of our time, The Industries of the Future. The author, Alec J., didn't just read about economic disruption. He lived it. He saw it in the eyes of the men he worked with. And then, he spent the next 2 decades traveling the world, seeing the other side of the story. He became a senior advisor for innovation to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, a role that took him to over 40 countries, from the robotics labs of South Korea to the refugee camps of the Congo. He got a front-row seat to the next wave of change, a wave that he says will make the last one look like a ripple in a pond. This book is the report he brought back. It's a map of the next 20 years, written for everyone who wants to understand how the world is about to be reshaped. It's not a book about science fiction, it's about the science facts that are already in motion and will define your career, your country, and your life. So today, we're going to walk through that map together. By the end of our time, you'll have a glimpse into the next 2 decades. You will understand the monumental shifts coming in robotics, genetics, money, data, and warfare. But more than that, you'll understand the human story behind it all, the story of who wins, who loses, and what it takes to land on the right side of the future. Book summary. To understand where we're going, we first have to understand the fundamental force that Alec J. identifies. He says, "Adapt or perish, now as ever, is nature's inexorable imperative." The last wave of globalization and technology was brutal for many in the developed world, like those janitors in West Virginia. Their skills couldn't keep up with the pace of change. But that same wave lifted over 1 billion people from poverty into the middle class in places like China and India. It was a massive transfer of fortune. The next wave, however, will be different. It won't just challenge factory workers. It will challenge middle classes across the entire globe. It will challenge lawyers, doctors, bankers, and even you. And it all begins with the transformation of the most fundamental machine we know, the human body. Imagine Japan. It's home to the longest living citizens on Earth. But this blessing comes with a challenge. By 2050, nearly 40% of the population will be over 65. They will need caretakers, but because of low birth rates, there simply won't be enough grandchildren or nurses to do the job. The math just doesn't work. So, what's the solution? Japan is betting on robots. Companies like Toyota and Honda are not just building cars anymore, they are reinventing the family. Toyota has created a nursing aid named Robina, a friendly-looking robot that can communicate, carry things, and assist the elderly. Honda has created Osimo, a small, astronaut-like humanoid that can understand emotions, follow voice commands, and even hold a conversation to keep an elderly patient company. There's even a therapeutic robot named Pero, designed to look like a baby harp seal. It's covered in soft, white fur, enjoys being held, and responds to touch, offering the comfort of a pet to those too frail to care for a living animal. This might sound like science fiction, but it's becoming reality, driven by necessity. Japan already operates over 300,000 industrial robots, leading the world. And their culture is uniquely prepared for this shift. The ancient Shinto religion includes a belief in animism, the idea that even inanimate objects have spirits. So, where Western culture often views robots as soulless machines, think of the Terminator, Japanese culture is more accepting of them as companions, as members of society. This cultural comfort, combined with economic need, means we will get our first real glimpse of a world full of robots in East Asia. But this revolution isn't just about companionship. It's about jobs. The first wave of automation took jobs that were dangerous, dirty, and dreary. The next wave is coming for the service sector. Tasks that we thought were uniquely human, jobs requiring dexterity, judgment, and situational awareness, are now opening up to robots. This is possible because of two huge breakthroughs. First, what's called cloud robotics. A single robot used to be limited to its own programming and experience. Now, connected to the cloud, a robot can learn from the experiences of every other similar robot in the world, instantly. Imagine if you could instantly download the skills and knowledge of billions of other people. That's the quantum leap robots are making right now. The second breakthrough is in materials. Robots are no longer just clunky metal machines. They can be made of soft silicone or flexible polymers, making them look and feel eerily natural. The question on everyone's mind, of course, is jobs. Alec revisits the story of Foxconn, a massive Taiwanese company that assembles your iPhone. Its founder, Terry Gu, once announced a plan to purchase 1 million robots to supplement his 1 million human workers. Why? He famously said, "As human beings are also animals, to manage 1 million animals gives me a headache." But it's more than that. It's pure economics. For decades, labor in China was cheap. But wages have soared. A robot costs about $25,000 up front, roughly 3 times a worker's annual salary, but after that, its operating costs are minimal. It doesn't get a salary, it doesn't need benefits, and it doesn't go on strike. As the price of robots falls, the choice for employers becomes simple. This isn't just about manufacturing. The jobs that were once a safe haven from globalization are now at risk. Waiters and waitresses? In Bangkok, the Hajime restaurant uses only robot waiters to take orders and serve food. Taxi drivers? Uber is already building a robotics lab to develop a self-driving fleet that could make its 162,000 active drivers obsolete. Even paralegals, whose job is to search through legal documents, are seeing their work automated. Ross tells the story of his own mother, who worked as a paralegal, and how he realized even as a teenager that a computer should be doing her job. Today, it largely is. This is the great paradox of our era. Productivity is at record levels, innovation has never been faster, yet for many, jobs are less secure and incomes are falling. But just as robots are taking, they are also giving. In the operating room, surgical robots like the Da Vinci system allow a surgeon's hand movements to be translated into precise micro-movements, making complex surgeries safer and less invasive. A company in Ukraine has developed a robotic glove called Enable Talk, which can translate sign language into spoken words in real time, giving a voice to the deaf and mute. At a small elementary school in Texas, a 12-year-old boy with leukemia, unable to attend class because of his compromised immune system, is present through a robot called Vigo. The robot sits in his seat, its camera showing him the classroom, and its screen showing his face to his friends. He can raise its robotic hand to ask a question and speak through its speakers. The line between human and machine is blurring. But the changes aren't just happening on the outside. The most profound revolution is happening within our very cells. Alec Ross makes a bold claim. The last trillion-dollar industry was built on a code of ones and zeros. The next will be built on our own genetic code. To understand what this means, you need to hear the story of Lucas Wortman. Lucas is an oncologist, a cancer researcher at Washington University who studies leukemia. In a cruel twist of fate, he himself was diagnosed with the very same disease. He survived it twice. But in 2011, at age 33, it came back for a third time. For an adult with a third relapse of this cancer, there was no known treatment that could save him. The data for survival didn't even exist. But his colleagues were genomics experts. They decided to try something that had never been done before. They would sequence the entire genome of both his healthy cells and his cancer cells to find the exact mutation that was driving his disease. They put the university's 26 sequencing machines to work, running day and night. After several weeks, they found it. A single normal gene in his body was overproducing a protein called FLT3, which was fueling the cancer's growth. And here is where the miracle happened. By pure chance, a drug had recently been released by Pfizer, called Sutent, designed to treat kidney cancer. But the science showed it worked by inhibiting that exact protein, FLT3. Lucas became the first person in history to use it for his type of leukemia. Within 2 weeks, he was in remission. Today, years later, his cancer has not returned. He says, "Without a doubt, sequencing really saved my life." Lucas Wortman's story is rare today, but Ross predicts it will be ordinary someday soon. This is because of the explosion in the field of genomics. The very first human genome was sequenced in 2003, at a cost of $2.7 billion. Today, the cost is approaching $1,000, and it's still dropping at a shocking rate. This is unleashing a revolution in medicine. Researchers like Bert Vogelstein at Johns Hopkins are developing what he calls a liquid biopsy, a simple blood test that can detect tiny amounts of tumor DNA, finding cancer when it's just 1% of the size needed to be seen by an MRI. This means cancer could be found and treated before a person even develops symptoms, turning it from a deadly disease into a manageable condition. The same science is being applied to the brain. For decades, treating mental illnesses like depression has been educated guesswork. Doctors prescribe from a small number of drugs, hoping one works, adjusting doses based on instinct. But now, by mapping the genes related to psychiatric illnesses, scientists are starting to understand the biological roots of conditions like schizophrenia and even suicide. Researchers at Johns Hopkins identified a gene that produces a protein in excessive quantities in the brains of people who had attempted suicide. The implication is breathtaking. One day, we might be able to develop a treatment that reduces the biological impulse to kill oneself. Of course, this incredible power comes with a dark side. As genomics gets more sophisticated, we enter the world of designer babies. It's already possible to take a blood sample from a pregnant woman and map the entire genome of her fetus. In the past, this was used to screen for conditions like Down syndrome. But soon, parents might know their unborn child's predisposition for heart disease, their likely height and weight, their aptitude for math, or their risk for alcoholism. This forces us to grapple with terrifying ethical questions about genetic selection and how this knowledge will shape a child's upbringing. The future of the human body, it seems, is being rewritten. And so is the future of our society, starting with the very concept of money. Growing up, money was something physical you kept in a wallet. But in the last few decades, it has been steadily turning into code. Credit cards, ATMs, online banking, each step has taken us further from physical cash. Today, for over 500 million people, the bank is simply their phone. This codification of money is creating incredible opportunities. especially for those left out of the traditional system. To understand this, we have to travel to Africa, specifically to Kenya. In many parts of Africa, traditional banks are rare, but mobile phones are everywhere. This gave rise to a revolutionary service called M-Pesa, which stands for mobile money. It allows anyone with a phone to deposit, send, and receive money through simple text messages. You just go to a local M-Pesa agent, often a person in a small corner store, hand them cash, and they load it onto your mobile account. The impact has been staggering. In Kenya, a country of 43 million people, there are 19 million M-Pesa accounts, and roughly 25% of the entire country's economy flows through this mobile network. It has lifted rural households' incomes by as much as 30%. People can receive remittances from family members abroad safely and cheaply, and small business owners can transact without needing a bank account. In a place like the Congo, where corruption is rampant, Ross saw firsthand how mobile payments could be used to pay soldiers directly, bypassing corrupt generals who would otherwise steal the cash. Coded money creates a digital trail, increasing trust and reducing corruption. This idea of coded trust is the engine behind another massive shift, the sharing economy. It started with eBay, a platform that did something radical. It used algorithms and a two-way rating system to make us trust complete strangers online. That breakthrough has now been applied to everything. Airbnb is now the world's largest hotel chain, but it doesn't own a single hotel room. Uber is the world's largest taxi company, but it doesn't own a fleet of cars. These companies created peer-to-peer marketplaces by turning underused assets, a spare bedroom, an empty seat in a car, into a source of income. But the ultimate expression of coded money and trust is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, a digital currency that isn't controlled by any government or bank. It was born from a community deeply skeptical of traditional financial institutions. The genius of Bitcoin is not the coin itself, but the technology behind it, the blockchain. The blockchain is essentially a giant, public ledger where every single Bitcoin transaction ever made is recorded for all to see. This ledger isn't stored in one place, it's distributed across millions of computers worldwide. This decentralization is what makes it so secure. To cheat the system, you'd have to simultaneously hack millions of computers, which is practically impossible. The blockchain, Ross argues, is a breakthrough in creating digital trust without a middleman like a bank or a lawyer. It has the potential to become the new foundation for all sorts of trusted transactions, from property titles to legal contracts, dramatically reducing costs and fraud. But just as code can be used to create trust and value, it can also be used to destroy it. This brings us to the next, and perhaps most frightening, industry of the future: the weaponization of code. On August 15, 2012, Saudi Aramco, the world's largest and most valuable energy company, was attacked. The weapon wasn't a bomb, it was a computer virus called Shamoon. A rogue employee inserted a USB drive, and the virus spread like wildfire through the company's network, wiping the memory of 30,000 computers and replacing the files with an image of a burning American flag. The attack nearly disrupted energy production, which would have sent shockwaves through the global economy. It was a wake-up call. If the world's richest company could be brought to its knees by code, anyone could. We have entered what Ross calls a code war. Cyberspace has been officially declared the fifth domain of warfare, alongside land, sea, air, and space. And the actors in this war are varied. There are criminal hackers, like those who stole the credit card information of 40 million customers from Target. And then there are nation-states. China has been accused of widespread corporate espionage, with a special military unit, PLA Unit 61398, allegedly stealing intellectual property and trade secrets from American companies for years. Russia has used cyber attacks as a prelude to military action, targeting the networks of Estonia, Georgia, and Ukraine before and during conflicts. The scary part is that the barriers to entry are incredibly low. You don't need billions of dollars and rare materials to build a cyber weapon. You just need a computer, an internet connection, and coding skills. And the battlefield is expanding every day. We are entering the era of the Internet of Things, where everything from our cars and thermostats to our refrigerators and medical devices are connected to the web. Cisco's chairman predicts it will be a $19 trillion market. This creates enormous convenience, but it also creates terrifying vulnerabilities. One security expert asks, what if a terrorist, or a kid doing a prank, decides to shock all the pacemakers in America? It's no longer science fiction. Hackers have already created thingbots, using compromised home appliances like smart TVs and even refrigerators to launch cyber attacks. This torrent of new technology, robots, genomes, digital money, cyber weapons, is all built on one foundational resource. It is the raw material of our time. Alec Ross puts it beautifully, land was the raw material of the agricultural age. Iron was the raw material of the industrial age. Data is the raw material of the information age. 90% of all the digital data in the world was generated in just the last 2 years. Every minute, 2.4 million pieces of content are posted on Facebook, and 72 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube. The explosion is staggering. But the term big data doesn't just refer to the amount of data. It refers to our new ability to process it in real time to find patterns and make predictions. The 2012 Obama campaign, for example, used big data to revolutionize politics. They tested over 10,000 versions of their fundraising emails. One subject line, "I will be outspent," raised over $2.6 million. Another, "The one thing the polls got right," raised only $400,000. The campaign team admitted, "We basically found our guts were worthless." Data, not intuition, was now king. This power is being applied to solve some of humanity's biggest challenges. Take language. With tools like Google Translate processing over 1 billion translations a day, we are rapidly approaching a future of universal, real-time machine translation. Soon, you could be wearing a small earpiece that instantly translates any language being spoken to you, and translates your speech back to them. This would shatter communication barriers and accelerate globalization on a massive scale, connecting economically isolated parts of the world to the global marketplace. Even more profound is the impact on agriculture. To feed the 9 billion people expected to be on Earth in the coming decades, food production needs to increase by 70%. The best hope for this is precision agriculture. By using sensors in the field, GPS data, and weather models, farmers can get precise, square-inch by square-inch instructions on what to plant, when to water, and how much fertilizer to use. This will dramatically increase crop yields while also reducing pollution from excess fertilizer. But this new age of data comes at a steep price, the end of privacy as we know it. Private companies already collect and sell as many as 75,000 individual data points about the average American consumer. Our digital footprints are practically indelible. As one expert warns, if a 9-year-old says something foolish online, it lives in perpetuity. Ross argues that we are heading toward a world where everyone will have a scandal, because our mistakes and indiscretions will be preserved forever in data. This will force us to become a more forgiving society, but it also raises troubling questions about who owns our data and how it's used. So, in this new world of intelligent machines, editable genes, programmable money, and constant surveillance, where do the opportunities lie? What does the geography of the future look like? Alec Ross offers one final, crucial piece of advice to world leaders. The 21st century is a terrible time to be a control freak. 2 other factors, Ross argues, are paramount for success. The first is the empowerment of women. He points to the stark contrast between China and Japan. In China, where Mao once declared that women hold up half the sky, women are a powerful force in business. The founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, says women were indispensable to his success, and nearly a quarter of his top leadership roles are filled by women. In contrast, Japan's economy has stagnated, in part because its work culture is hostile to working mothers. 70% of Japanese women stop working after their first child. As Prime Minister Shinzo Abe himself admitted, Japan's GDP could grow by 16% if women participated in the labor force as much as men. The message is clear: nations that don't fully empower half their population will be left behind. The second factor is empowering digital natives, the young people who grew up with this technology. In Silicon Valley, it's normal for companies to be started by people in their 20s. But in the more hierarchical cultures of Mediterranean Europe, young entrepreneurs often have to wait until their 40s to be taken seriously. This brain drain is crippling their economies. Finally, Ross leaves us with a sense of hope, pointing to the rise of Africa. In an environment of scarcity, incredible creativity emerges, a concept known as frugal innovation. Services like M-Pesa wouldn't have been invented in a country with a robust banking system. He tells the story of Andela, a company that finds and trains top software developers in Nigeria, proving that genius is everywhere. It just needs opportunity. He tells us about iCow, a mobile app that helps small-scale dairy farmers in Kenya manage their herds. From a midnight janitorial shift in West Virginia to the high-tech hubs of the future, the journey is one of profound and relentless change. The industries of the future are not just technologies, they are forces that are rewriting the rules of success for nations, for companies, and for each one of us. Commentary. As we close the pages of the industries of the future, it's easy to feel a sense of whiplash. The world Alec Ross describes is both exhilarating and terrifying. It's a world where cancer could be melted away with designer drugs, but where your job could be taken by a robot. A world where we can communicate with anyone, anywhere, in any language, but where our every move is tracked and stored in a permanent digital record. The most powerful lesson in this book isn't about any single technology. It's about the accelerating pace of change itself. For most of human history, the world you died in was largely the same as the one you were born into. That is no longer true. The world your children will inherit will be vastly different from our own, and the skills required to succeed in it are being redefined right now. So, what does this mean for you, as you stand on the cusp of your own future? Ross interviewed dozens of the world's leading innovators for this book, and he asked them all the same question: what attributes will today's kids need for tomorrow's economy? Two clear themes emerged. First, you must develop fluency in at least 2 new languages. But not just any languages. The consensus was that you need 1 cultural language and 1 technical language. The former eBay CEO John Donahoe put it perfectly: if he were 18 today, he would major in computer science and take Mandarin. Multicultural fluency, the ability to navigate different cultures and ways of thinking, is becoming essential in a deeply interconnected global economy. And technical fluency, understanding the logic of programming and systems, is the new literacy. You may not need to become a professional coder, but as Jack Dorsey of Twitter and Square explains, learning to program teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to break down massive, complex problems into small, solvable parts, a skill that is invaluable in any field. Second, you must cultivate an interdisciplinary mind. The silos between the sciences and the humanities are breaking down. The future will belong to those who can connect the dots. The geneticist who understands ethics. The computer scientist who understands human psychology. The artist who understands data visualization. The world's problems are too complex to be solved from a single perspective. Your ability to think across disciplines will be your greatest asset. Ultimately, this book is a call to action. It's a call to be curious, to be adaptable, and to be a lifelong learner. The janitors Alec Ross worked with were trapped because their world disappeared, and no one gave them a map to the new one. This book is that map. It doesn't have all the answers, but it asks all the right questions. It shows you where the new coastlines are forming, where the new continents of opportunity are rising from the sea of change. Your job is to learn how to navigate them. That was a summary of The Industries of the Future by Alec Ross. We certainly covered the main ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a travel brochure. It shows you the beautiful pictures, but it can't give you the feeling of actually being there. The real value of this book is in the stories, the details, and the way Ross connects these huge technological shifts to the very real human consequences. This summary is meant to give you a taste, to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If the future of work, health, and society is something that sparks your curiosity, I urge you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about gaining knowledge, it's about preparing yourself for the world you are about to step into. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please consider giving this a like and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another one of the transformative books that have shaped the minds of leaders and innovators. Let's keep learning and growing together.